The silence between the distant explosions was almost deafening. Eli shifted his weight on the scorched metal floor, the remnants of what was once a sprawling starship, now nothing more than twisted girders and sparking conduits. He glanced around the wreckage like a nervous kid at a school dance, unsure whether to stay or run, but knowing either choice had its own risks. His armor was scratched, his breath ragged, but somehow his spirits remained stubbornly intact. Well, if this is what they call a peaceful retreat, I'm not signing up for the next one, he muttered, wincing as a stray spark sizzled near his boot. From the corner of his eye, a movement caught his attention. There she was, the alien woman he'd spotted before, standing with the grace of someone who had seen a few too many wars and wasn't about to pretend she hadn't. Her ears, long and elegant, flicked like antennae, catching sounds Eli couldn't hear. He wanted to say something clever, but all he managed was, hey, you lost too, or just making this your new vacation spot? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she tilted her head, eyes narrowing in that way that suggested she was mentally cataloging him as either a threat, a snack, or perhaps both. Eli forced a crooked smile, deciding that if he was about to die, it might as well be with a little dignity. Name's Eli, human. I'm not great at first impressions, but I'm working on it. Her lips twitched, almost a smile. Lyra, she said finally, voice cool but not unkind. Alien, also lost. Your planet's destruction is impressive, if unintentionally comedic. Comedic? Yeah, well, we're full of surprises, like this charming introduction. Eli kicked a loose piece of metal, sending it clattering into the shadows. So what brings you to this lovely scrap heap? A foolish mission, and perhaps curiosity about the human who seems intent on surviving against all odds. Lyra replied, stepping closer, her long ears brushing her shoulder. You are different from the others. Eli chuckled. Well, I do have my moments, like the time I accidentally ordered a dozen space burritos and survived on regret alone. She raised an eyebrow. Space burritos? Yeah, it's a thing. Not recommended for first dates or last meals. He grinned. Anyway, if we're both stuck here, maybe we can stop trying to kill each other for a while. Call it a truce? Lyra considered, then nodded slightly. A temporary alliance, until the war claims us or we find a way off this floating junkyard. Sounds fair. I'm guessing you don't have a ship that runs on hopes and bad decisions? Not currently. Her smirk was faint but real. What about you? Just a patched-up engine, questionable wiring, and the kind of stubbornness that probably should be illegal. They settled into an uneasy companionship, sharing stories between cautious glances. Eli talked about Earth, a chaotic, noisy place filled with clumsy humans who wore mismatched socks and still managed to blow things up spectacularly. Lyra shared fragments of her world, where honor was everything, and long ears marked a lineage of warriors who valued loyalty above all. At one point, Eli asked, So, how do you keep your ears so, majestic in the middle of a war zone? Mine are more scared rabbit than regal alien. Lyra laughed softly, a sound like wind chimes caught in a gentle breeze. I suppose practice and a good skincare routine. Noted. I'll add that to my survival guide right after don't stand in front of exploding things. Eli grinned, then caught himself. Guess we're both lucky to be alive. Or unlucky, depending on how you see it. Lyra's eyes softened. Perhaps we are neither. Perhaps we are exactly where we are meant to be, if only for a moment. Eli nodded. Yeah, maybe this scrap heap is the start of something less explosive. As the distant thunder of battle resumed its relentless rhythm, they shared a look that spoke of unspoken promises. Two souls adrift in the vast coldness of space, finding warmth in an unlikely place. Family, Eli said quietly. That's what I want. Maybe even with you. Lyra's long ears twitched, her gaze meeting his with something raw and unguarded. Tears welled in her eyes, shimmering like stars against the dark. Then we will be family, soldier. Even if the universe insists on tearing us apart. And for a fleeting heartbeat, the war faded, leaving only the fragile hope of connection, a whisper against the void. They didn't speak much as they walked, side by side, over the mangled deck of the wrecked cruiser. The floor trembled now and then with distant shock waves, as if the planet beneath it still hadn't decided whether to finish crumbling or just politely disintegrate. Eli occasionally glanced at Lyra, who moved with the cautious elegance of someone expecting an ambush behind every piece of twisted bulkhead. He, on the other hand, moved like someone who had long accepted that his next step might kill him and simply hoped it didn't happen before lunch. "So," Eli said, hopping over a fallen beam, "what exactly does an elite alien warrior eat when she's not slicing her enemies in half or brooding over the ashes of civilization?" "Mostly things you would find unpalatable," Lyra replied without looking at him. "Fermented stalk root, raw crecto meat, pickled flarn tendrils." "Sounds delicious," he said, trying not to gag. "Any chance you have snacks that don't smell like regret and betrayal?" "There is a ration bar in my pack. It has been there since the last moon cycle. I believe it is now classified as a geological artifact." "Perfect," Eli said. "I've always wanted to eat something older than my last paycheck." They paused beside a half-collapsed bulkhead. Lyra knelt and activated a small scanner from her belt, its holographic screen flickering with alien glyphs. Eli leaned in to watch, pretending he understood any of it. "So what are we scanning for? Life forms, treasure, vending machines?" "Power signatures," she said. "There is a signal not far from here, possibly a distress beacon, or a trap, or a malfunctioning toaster." "I've been betrayed by worse," Eli muttered, stretching his neck. "Lead the way, Commander Longears." Lyra arched a brow. "Is that meant as an insult or a term of endearment?" "Oh, definitely endearment," he said. "I only insult people I plan to shoot." "Good," she said, standing. "Then I shall refrain from shooting you as well." They advanced through the remains of the corridor, stepping over exposed cabling and shattered armor plating. The silence between them wasn't awkward. It was something deeper, almost meditative, like the rare peace before a storm. Eli couldn't help but notice how naturally their pace matched, how Lyra would subtly adjust her stride when he limped, never acknowledging it, but never ignoring it either. At one point, Eli tapped the side of his helmet. "You know, we could probably call for help if I hadn't accidentally poured energy drink into the comms port. It's a long story, but it starts with, 'I was trying to impress a girl,' and ends with, 'Never do that again.'" Lyra gave him a long look. "How are you still alive?" "Mostly luck," Eli said. "Partially stupidity. And a small percentage of me is fueled by spite." They found the source of the signal inside what had once been the ship's infirmary. A flickering console pulsed weakly, casting a soft blue glow across the room. Lyra stepped forward, examining it with clinical precision. Eli hung back, poking around the scattered remains of medical equipment, most of it half-melted or suspiciously sticky. "Any chance this thing can get us off the planet?" he asked, gesturing at the console. "Not directly," she said, "but it is relaying an encoded message. Something old, buried, possibly from another war." "Great," Eli said, picking up a syringe and then instantly regretting it. "Let me guess. It tells us exactly how doomed we are in several poetic languages?" "Something like that," Lyra murmured. She turned to him, her expression thoughtful. "There is a name encoded in the signal. Yours." Eli blinked. "That's not creepy at all. Are you sure it's mine? There's a lot of Elis in the galaxy. It's a very common name among people who make bad life choices." "It is your military ID," Lyra said. "And a second name, Ilara." His smile faltered. He looked away, rubbing the back of his neck. "Ilara was my sister. She died in the first wave of the war." "I'm sorry," Lyra said, and there was a weight behind her voice that made the silence settle deeper around them. "She was better at all this, fighting, surviving, making sense of chaos." He exhaled slowly. "If she left something behind, I want to know what it is." "Then we find the source," Lyra said simply. They left the infirmary and followed the signal's trace, weaving through the skeleton of the ship as if guided by invisible threads. Along the way, Eli managed to trip twice, get zapped by a live wire, and startle a nest of mechanical scavenger drones that seemed personally offended by his existence. Lyra handled them with quiet efficiency, and afterward, Eli offered her the title of Queen of Not Dying. "You seem different," she said as they paused at a sealed hatch. "Less afraid." "Yeah," he said. I guess being around someone who knows what they're doing has that effect. Plus, if I die now, at least it'll be in style. Lyra smirked. You humans find humor in everything. We have to, Eli replied. Otherwise, we'd go mad. Or worse, boring. They forced the hatch open together, revealing a small room with a single chair and a screen still active after all this time. Lyra approached first, scanning for traps. Eli followed, eyes fixed on the display, where a message scrolled in familiar script. It was a recording, a voice transmission, and when it played, the sound of Alara's voice filled the room. If you're hearing this, it began, then you found me too late, but not everything's lost. I left something behind. Not a weapon, not revenge. Something better. Eli closed his eyes, letting her voice wash over him. Lyra stood beside him, silent and unmoving, and for a moment, surrounded by ghosts and war and secrets, the strange peace between them held. The room smelled faintly of scorched ozone and old regrets, the kind of scent Eli had grown far too familiar with over the last few years. He stood there frozen as the recording of Alara's voice looped a second time. Her words were calm, determined, laced with the same sharp clarity he remembered from their childhood. Somewhere between the war reports and the calls for unity, there was the tiniest hint of laughter, like she'd known how absurd everything had become. Lyra leaned against the far wall, arms crossed, one long ear twitching thoughtfully. Your sister had good articulation, she said after a moment, and emotional restraint, unlike someone I know. Eli blinked and looked at her. Hey, I cry very selectively, mostly during tragic movie endings and when I stub my toe, sometimes simultaneously. Lyra's lip twitched. The message, she mentions coordinates, a location under the planet's surface, and something she called the lattice. Does that mean anything to you? Eli scratched his chin. Vaguely. I think it was a theoretical construct, some kind of interspecies neural link project. Big science, lots of wires, probably violated a few dozen intergalactic privacy laws. And your sister was involved. She was one of the lead techs, said it could connect minds across species, build trust faster than diplomats ever could. He hesitated. They called her idealistic. I think they meant naive. Or visionary, Lyra said quietly. Perhaps this lattice is why we were drawn here. That or fate's got a twisted sense of humor, Eli muttered. Which tracks? They left the room in silence, the faint echo of Ilara's final words lingering in their minds. Navigating the wreckage became more difficult as they descended toward the old infrastructure. The corridors grew narrower, older, less ship and more something else. Lyra's scanner began to ping erratically. This section predates the cruiser, she murmured. These materials are not human, or from my world. Ancient alien tunnels under a war-torn planet? I feel like we just walked into one of those forbidden archaeology documentaries that always ends with someone getting possessed. That is a possibility, she said with unsettling calm. Comforting. Glad I brought my anti-ghost socks. They eventually reached a sealed hatch, so old it looked fused to the surrounding wall. Lyra tapped her fingers against the surface, then activated a pulse key from her belt. A burst of harmonic light shimmered along the edges. The hatch groaned like it was remembering how to be a door, and reluctantly opened. Beyond was a vast chamber filled with silent machines, towering pylons of silver-threaded crystal rising like stalagmites. A soft hum resonated in the air, vibrating faintly in Eli's bones. In the center was a console surrounded by a spider web of conduits that glowed faintly with blue-white energy. Lyra approached it with reverence, while Eli poked a small blinking panel nearby. It beeped at him. Don't touch that, she said without turning. I wasn't touching. I was investigating. With my finger. Exactly. He sighed dramatically but backed away. This is the part where something either lights up and welcomes us, or explodes and eats our memories. Lyra touched the console, and immediately the chamber responded. Lights flickered to life in sequence, and the pylons pulsed with synchronized energy. A projection appeared above them, suspended in midair, an elegant lattice of lines and nodes that expanded outward like a growing brain. This is it, Lyra whispered. A living network. It looks like a bowl of cosmic spaghetti, Eli said, which, to be fair, might be the smartest spaghetti in the galaxy. A soft voice filled the room. Ilara's again, but this time speaking in a different cadence, more formal, as if addressing an audience rather than a brother. If you're seeing this, then the lattice is still active. That means hope is still possible. The war wasn't supposed to end like this. We thought we had time. We always think we have time. Lyra turned to Eli, her gaze steady. This could change everything. If we activate it fully, we may be able to broadcast a peace signal directly into the minds of combatants. It would bypass language, fear, propaganda. Peace through psychic conference calls? That's either genius or the plot of a very weird comedy. It is better than continuing this endless cycle. Eli walked toward the projection. He stared at one node glowing brighter than the others. So, how do we turn it on without frying our brains? There are two key interfaces, Lyra explained, designed for dual input. One must be human, the other, not. Eli looked at her. You're not going to ask me to hold hands and chant, are you? Number, just don't panic if your brain tingles. That's reassuring. They placed their hands on adjacent consoles. The machines responded instantly, tendrils of light curling upward like vines seeking the sun. Eli felt a warmth surge through his mind, not burning, but probing, curious, like an invisible librarian leafing through the pages of his thoughts. He saw flashes, memories not his own, a world of crystalline forests, Lyra's childhood, her training, the day she was forced to abandon her homeworld. Then his own memories surfaced, laughing with Ilara, running through rain, the quiet nights in bunkers with nothing but static on the comms. Their eyes met as the connection deepened. For a moment the room vanished and they stood in a shared mind space, a vast field beneath unfamiliar stars. No war, no wreckage, just the strange stillness of understanding. You see me, Lyra said. I see you, Eli replied. We're not so different, except your ears could pick up radio. She smiled faintly. And your jokes are deeply unfortunate. When the connection faded, the chamber pulsed with renewed light. The lattice was alive. Signal broadcasting, Lyra said, checking her scanner. Initial feedback, promising. No signs of hostility from the outer skirmish zones. There's hesitation, confusion. Listening. Eli let out a low breath. We actually did something good. For once, she said. They stood there, in the heart of an alien machine that was older than both their civilizations, trying to decide what came next. The war might pause, or it might return stronger than ever. But for now there was quiet. And in the quiet, Eli said, Hey, Lyra. Yes? If we survive all this, you think we could get one of those cosmic spaghetti nodes to play music? I've got a killer playlist. She shook her head. Human absurdity. You say that like it's a bad thing. It is, she said, but it is also endearing. A soft voice filled the room. Ilara's again, but this time speaking in a different cadence, more formal, as if addressing an audience rather than a brother. If you're seeing this, then the lattice is still active. That means hope is still possible. The war wasn't supposed to end like this. We thought we had time. We always think we have time. Lyra turned to Eli, her gaze steady. This could change everything. If we activate it fully, we may be able to broadcast a peace signal directly into the minds of combatants. It would bypass language, fear, propaganda. Peace through psychic conference calls? That's either genius or the plot of a very weird comedy. It is better than continuing this endless cycle. Eli walked toward the projection. He stared at one node glowing brighter than the others. So, how do we turn it on without frying our brains? There are two key interfaces, Lyra explained, designed for dual input. One must be human, the other, not. Eli looked at her. You're not going to ask me to hold hands and chant, are you? Number, just don't panic if your brain tingles. That's reassuring. They placed their hands on adjacent consoles. The machines responded instantly, tendrils of light curling upward, like vines seeking the sun. Eli felt a warmth surge through his mind, not burning but probing, curious like an invisible librarian leafing through the pages of his thoughts. He saw flashes, memories not dead, the sound bouncing off ancient walls, and for the first time in a long time, it didn't echo back with sorrow. The light of the lattice still flickered above them, threads of shimmering information pulsing gently in the air, like a heartbeat trying to remember its rhythm. Outside, the battlefronts had stilled. Intercepted transmissions reported a lull in aggression, as if soldiers on both sides had suddenly remembered they were people first, enemies second. Eli stared at the main pylon, rubbing his temples like it might help massage meaning into the moment. So, we just rewired the brains of a few thousand soldiers. Did we accidentally invent therapy? Lyra didn't look up from the console. Therapy implies long-term emotional work. This was more of an emergency empathy upload. I still think we deserve an award, or at least a sandwich. Focus, she replied, tapping several glyphs with fingers, too fast for him to follow. The broadcast is stable, but the power cells here are ancient. They were never meant to handle sustained transmission. You're saying the Hope machine is running on fumes? I'm saying that if we don't find a stable power source within the next 7 hours, the lattice will collapse, and whatever fragile harmony we've seeded out there will vanish faster than your tactical competence. Eli snapped his fingers. Ouch! That was a good burn. Can you teach me how to insult people like that in your language? There are entire schools for it. Their banter evaporated as a low tremor rippled through the chamber. Dust floated down from above, and the crystalline structures quivered like tuning forks. Lyra's head jerked up. That was not geological. I'll go out on a limb and guess not geological means bad. It means someone's here. Eli turned toward the entrance, unslinging his rifle with all the enthusiasm of a man who knew how little it actually mattered when diplomacy failed. Okay, do we think it's your people, my people, or door-to-door salesmen with death rays? The answer arrived in the form of a distant mechanical shriek, too synthetic for a beast, too furious for a drone. A few seconds later, a scout drone zipped into the chamber, its camera lens whirring as it focused on them. Then it beeped an alarm and zipped back the way it came. Well, Eli said, either we just scared it, or it ran off to tell the others that the weird couple in the basement is fiddling with alien tech. Lyra didn't answer. Her fingers danced across the console again, rerouting power toward defense nodes embedded in the walls. Long dormant emitters began to hum. Please tell me those are shields. Plasma arcs, short range, not strong, but better than sarcasm. You wound me. My sarcasm is devastating. Your sarcasm is like a wet sponge thrown during a meteor strike. A warning klaxon blared from the lattice system, 3 distinct pulses, then silence. Lyra's eyes narrowed. They're sending a strike team. Unknown origin, non-affiliated armor signatures. Third-party scavengers? Possibly mercenaries. Possibly worse. Eli cracked his knuckles. I always knew we'd end up getting shot at over a metaphor for unity. The chamber's ceiling groaned. Lyra activated the defensive nodes. A faint shimmer rippled around the pylons, and the air tasted faintly of static. Just as the first breach charge detonated above them, Eli pulled Lyra behind a console. Figures dropped in through the smoke. Black-armored, visors opaque, weapons drawn. They didn't speak. They didn't hesitate. They opened fire. Plasma hissed against the shields. Eli popped up and returned fire, not aiming to kill, just to stall. They're not talking. That's a bad sign, right? They're here for the lattice, Lyra shouted. They don't need us. We're collateral. That's a lovely word for target practice. She tossed him a charge sphere. Throw this at the western pylon base, now. Eli didn't argue. He lobbed the sphere with a perfect arc honed by years of chucking grenades and very uncooperative ration packs. The sphere burst in a flare of light, and the western pylon surged with energy, releasing a shockwave that knocked half the intruders off their feet. Lyra seized the moment. She leapt over the console, moving like a dancer with a vendetta. Her staff snapped out from her back harness and extended with a crackle of blue energy. She struck with precision, disabling, disarming, dislocating. Eli, from his slightly less graceful position behind a pylon, tried to help by not shooting her by accident. Remind me never to annoy you on your birthday, he muttered. Together they drove the attackers back. A final pulse from the lattice disrupted their comms, forcing a retreat. One of them paused just long enough to fire a parting shot at the main conduit. The beam sliced cleanly through a power relay. Sparks erupted. The lights flickered. The hum of the lattice dimmed. Lyra raced to the damage. Her fingers trembled as she examined the severed line. It's no good. The internal grid can't handle this. We'll need an external power core to reboot. Eli knelt beside her. I saw an energy depot outside the cruiser wreck. There was an auxiliary unit, intact, last I checked. That's nearly a kilometer on foot. Fast feet, slower sarcasm. I'll go, she said, standing. He grabbed her wrist. You stay here. If this place gets attacked again, you're the only one who knows how to fix it. I'll go. She looked at him long and hard. You're not a soldier anymore. I'm not, but I'm still family. And that's a job that comes with running towards stupid things so you don't have to. She hesitated, then nodded once. Take the back tunnels. Avoid detection. Don't get shot. Yes, I read the manual. He grabbed his gear and jogged toward the exit, pausing only to look back once. She stood beside the wounded lattice, bathed in its dim light, long ears twitching with each sound from above. He gave her a thumbs up and vanished into the tunnel. As the lattice flickered behind her, Lyra allowed herself the smallest smile. I will hold the line, she whispered, and in the dark, ancient chamber full of alien technology and fragile hope, the echo sounded like a promise. The air in the tunnel tasted like old metal and forgotten secrets, the kind of place where your own footsteps sound like someone else's. Eli moved fast, counting corners, weapons tight against his chest. His mind, however, was back in the chamber, back with her. The depot wasn't hard to find. The hard part was the 3 six-legged scavenger drones guarding it like it was the last piece of chocolate in the galaxy. He crouched behind a melted support beam and watched them clank in sad circles, occasionally bumping into each other like confused beetles with identity issues. You'd think with all their tech, someone could program these things to walk in a straight line, he muttered. He waited for a gap, then sprinted. One drone pinged an alarm, but instead of engaging, it slipped on a pool of coolant and face-planted into the wall. Eli gave it a salute as he passed. Graceful as ever, boys, never change. The auxiliary power core was still nestled in its cradle, surprisingly undamaged. Eli lifted it, grunting under its weight. He had carried heavier, sure, but never while dodging drones and philosophical questions about cross-species emotional entanglement. The trip back was less eventful, unless you counted the moment when he tripped over a root and landed face-first in alien moss. He arrived at the chamber bruised, covered in plant slime, and very proud of the fact that he was still alive. Lyra didn't even blink. You smell like fermented tree bark. It's a new cologne, called Desperation. She helped him slot the core into the system. With a soft chime, the lattice surged back to life, light crawling across its spires like morning breaking over a sleeping city. It pulsed once, twice, and then began transmitting again, spreading its empathic resonance outward. Data flooded the system, reports from all over the front lines, messages of troops laying down weapons, medics walking unchallenged through battlefields, commanders ordering ceasefires instead of strikes. The lattice was working. They stood together, not speaking, just listening to the quiet hum of hope. Then a new signal blinked across the interface, a secure line, a high-ranking Soran officer. Lyra's breath caught. It's her, my sister. Eli stepped back, letting her take the call. The hologram formed slowly, an elegant woman with similar features, long ears, and an expression like steel draped in velvet. Commander Lyra, she said, your signal was unexpected. So is your company. Lyra's tone stayed even. This is Lieutenant Elias Marlowe. Without him, the lattice would still be silent. Humans make unpredictable allies. Eli grinned. We also make excellent pasta. You should come over sometime. Lyra stifled a smile. Her sister didn't. I suppose we must reconsider our biases. Your data confirms the empathy resonance is real. Our fleet has stood down. Yours? Eli checked his wristband. My people are confused, but in a good way. like when they first tasted blue milk and didn't die. Then perhaps peace is no longer an illusion. The call ended, but the weight of it lingered. Lyra turned to Eli. You've done more than most in this war. I did it for the heroism and the snacks. He tried to sound casual, but his eyes searched hers. She didn't look away. You asked me once what family meant to a Soren, she said. It means chosen bonds. It means standing beside someone when every instinct tells you to run. He stepped closer. Then I choose you. Her eyes shimmered, not with tears, but something brighter. She raised one hand to his cheek, the other resting over his chest, where his heart still beat far too fast for someone standing still. I choose you too, Elias Marlowe. A pause, then. But I'm still better at aiming, he laughed. I'll let you have that one. But I'm better at naming things. Lattice? Really? I will ignore that insult for the sake of interspecies unity. They turned to the lattice together, watching as the signal grew stronger. Messages poured in, leaders agreeing to negotiate, soldiers asking to reunite with families, even enemies sharing stories over static-filled channels. The galaxy wasn't healed, not yet, but the infection had finally stopped spreading. A quiet settled between them again, not the heavy silence of before, but the kind of quiet you find in a room full of old books, or the space between stars. Later, on the surface, they stood amid the ruins. The air smelled different now, less of ash, more of promise. A Soren ship landed nearby, flanked by human transports. Diplomats and warriors alike disembarked, blinking at one another like confused houseguests. I guess this is where the boring work begins, Eli said. Talks, treaties, compromise. Probably forms. Yes, and very bad coffee. They watched as their people began to mingle, tentatively, cautiously, but without weapons. He turned to her, brushing a strand of yellow hair from her face. Do we get an epilogue? Or is this it? She leaned in, forehead against his. This is the beginning. Behind them, the First Joint Council banner unfurled in the wind. It read in both languages, We are not the same, and that is why we belong together. They didn't need to say anything after that. The galaxy had changed, and so had they. The station drifted like a carcass, gutted and blind, tethered to the gravitational edge of the Nema drift. Calthar barely regarded the decay. One scan across the jagged hull told him everything he needed. No defensive fields, no movement, minimal energy output. A grave. He activated his HUD and gave a curt nod to his strike team, already disembarking from the lander. Proceed. Weapons live. Eyes sharp, he said, voice edged like monoblade steel. His armor, polished with the fluid sheen of Solari warskin, flexed with mechanical precision as he stepped onto the docking ring. Gravity felt light. Atmosphere was stale but breathable. A faint hum beneath his feet told him the emergency reactors were still coughing up dregs. Vena followed 2 paces behind, long ears twitching, rifle cradled lazily in her arms like it was a house pet. Place smells like old socks and ambition, she muttered. Calthar didn't laugh, didn't even blink. Focus. Just saying. If I wanted to die surrounded by rust and broken coffee machines, I'd visit your childhood home. He turned sharply. You've never seen my home, she grinned. I extrapolated. The interior of the station was worse. Flickering lights, panels melted from the inside, an acrid scent of charred metal and human desperation. Their boots echoed down corridors stripped of their warmth, their color, their function. Kelthar moved like a predator, eyes scanning, armor twitching to subtle threats. Vena moved like someone expecting a vending machine to explode at any second. When they reached command control, the doors refused to open. Manual override, Kelthar ordered. Vena pointed at the access panel. Be my guest. Just try not to insult the AI before you touch it. They hold grudges. Calthar grunted and placed his palm to the pad. It shocked him. Vena smirked. Told you. Inside, amidst sparking terminals and shattered glass, stood a woman. Human. Alive. She was unarmed, dressed in a jumpsuit too clean for her surroundings, sipping from a metal cup like the galaxy wasn't collapsing one subsystem at a time. You took your time, she said. Kelthar aimed his weapon. Identify yourself. Elise Harrow. Dr. Elise Harrow, xenotech researcher. Last time I checked, not a threat, unless you're a coffee bean. Vena tilted her head. You're the only one left? Elise nodded. Technically, unless you count the AI, but we stopped inviting it to team lunches after it tried to cook Steve in the replicator. Kalthar frowned. Explain. Elise sighed and sipped again. Let's skip the part where you pretend to be in charge and just go straight to the part where I say, I told you so. This station is sitting on top of something old, not ruins, not a cache, a failsafe. Something put here a long time ago by a civilization with a very flexible definition of do not disturb. Your sensors didn't detect it because it's not technology. Not anymore. Kalthar's gauntlet clicked. What are you talking about? She gestured to the ceiling. It's thinking. It's awake. And it's already watching us. He scanned her. No visible implants. No signs of hallucination. But her vitals, oddly calm. Vena leaned closer. What exactly did you wake up, Doc? Elise's smile was thin. We didn't wake it up. We annoyed it. Like a cat when you poke its tail. It's just waiting to see what you do next. Kalthar waved her aside and moved to the central terminal. Superstition, human imagination. We've handled worse. Elise put her cup down and muttered, That's what the last squad said. Right before the walls digested them, Vena froze. Excuse me? Digested. I mean, technically, they got translated into binary soup and spread across 6 parallel dimensions. But I think the word digested carries more narrative weight. Don't you? Kalthar accessed the core feed. Data flooded in, erratic, recursive loops, signal splicing, time-stamped errors from the future. One camera showed the docking bay, empty. Another showed their lander on fire. He frowned. That wasn't right. Looped feed, he muttered. Elise raised a finger. Or predictive feed. Sometimes the AI gets bored and shows you what might happen. You know, just for giggles. Kalthar didn't respond. He ran a diagnostic. The system resisted. Not blocked. Fluid. Every command he issued was rerouted, like the station was mocking him. He stepped back. This is impossible. Nope, Elise said. Just inconvenient. Vena was watching the shadows. Her long ears flicked like antennae. I don't like this. We're being studied. I said that already, Elise added. But feel free to take credit. Everyone else has. Kalthar pointed to a sealed hatch on the far side of the room. We proceed. Core is beneath us. Fantastic, Elise said, following. Just promise me. When your bones are folded into a Mobius strip and your soul is trapped in a recursive logic puzzle, you'll admit I was right. Kalthar paused. Why didn't you evacuate? I did. Twice. Ship disappeared both times. One turned into a shrubbery. Vena blinked. A shrubbery? Yep, with a little sign that said, nice try. They entered the shaft. Lights flickered red. The air grew denser, not from pressure, but from expectation, like the space itself was holding its breath. Kalthar's team descended in silence, save for Vena muttering to herself. Great. We're descending into an ancient death trap guided by the sassiest human in 5 systems. What could possibly go wrong? Elise grinned. Everything. At the bottom, the chamber opened like a throat. Crystalline filaments pulsed in the walls, breathing with rhythms too precise for nature. At the center, a monolith. Not stone, not metal. It shimmered like liquid memory, and it was awake. Kalthar approached. Scan it. His HUD blinked. Unknown entity. Classification, not recommended. Elise crossed her arms. Told you. The monolith shimmered again. Symbols erupted into the air. Mathematical, musical, visual. Then, without warning, Kalthar's armor seized, locked. A voice filled the room. Input accepted. Commencing evaluation. Vena raised her weapon. I don't like evaluations. Kalthar couldn't move. His systems rebooted twice. Elise just sipped from a thermos she'd somehow smuggled in. I hope you stretched, she said, because the last test started with a 7-dimensional maze, and I'm not doing that again. Kalthar's eyes narrowed. You've been through this? Oh yeah, Elise said. Didn't win, but I got a souvenir. She pulled a rubber duck from her pocket. It blinked. Calthar stared. The monolith pulsed. The walls shifted. The test began. Calthar hated mazes, especially ones that shouldn't exist. The corridor twisted before him like a mathematical insult, edges folding into themselves, angles where angles had no right to be. Behind him, Vena's muttered string of curses suggested she shared his sentiments, though hers involved more words from the Solari naval lexicon, most of which required a 2-year license to say in public. Elise walked ahead of them both, calmly chewing on something that crunched like a snack and glowed faintly green. "Is that food?" Vena asked, half horrified. "Technically," Elise replied, not stopping. "Also technically a desiccant, but the texture is amazing." Calthar grunted. "Focus." "I am focused," Elise said. "Just snackily." A panel opened in the ceiling with a hiss, and something small, spherical, and covered in blinking lights dropped into the corridor. It hovered. Watch them. A single mechanical eye blinked open with a cartoonish boink sound. Elise raised a hand. "Let me guess. Pop quiz?" The orb chimed in a cheerful voice. "Welcome to cognitive trial number 1. Associative logic through abstract thought." Vena stepped back, raising her rifle. "That's it. I've snapped. This is a dream. A weird, snack-based fever dream." Calthar narrowed his eyes. "Proceed." The orb beeped happily. "In front of you are 4 doors. One leads forward, one leads backward. One leads to non-existence, and one leads to an uncomfortable childhood memory you haven't dealt with yet." The doors slid open. Each was identical. "This test brought to you by the fated architects," the orb chirped. "Now extinct, but still deeply smug." Elise clapped her hands. "All right, brain cells, assemble. We've got some quantum guessing to do." Calthar approached the first door and placed a hand near it. The surface shimmered and an image appeared. His academy days, the disappointment of his instructors etched across their long faces. The door whispered, "You were never good enough." He stepped back. "That's the childhood memory." "Spicy," Elise said. Vena tried the second. It produced an image of an empty void. No sound, no light. "Okay, I'm voting non-existence for this one, unless that's just Kale's social life." Calthar didn't respond. Elise examined the third. It showed them walking through a hallway into more light. Vague shapes. Progress. "Suspiciously normal," she said. "And that worries me." The fourth door showed a loop of them, walking into the same room again. "That's backward," Calthar said. "The architecture is recursive. Same damage on the wall." "So the correct door is the one pretending to be boring," Elise decided. "Classic misdirection. Like hiding plutonium in a potato." The orb beeped again. "Final answer?" Calthar nodded. "We proceed through the third." "Congratulations. You're not as dumb as you look. Progressing." The door slid open. "Wait," Elise said. "Did it just insult you and compliment you?" Calthar stepped through first. "We move." The next chamber was stranger. Gravity was sideways. They clung to what should have been a wall, their boots locking with magnetic adherence. Objects floated in spirals, cups, data slates, what appeared to be a taxidermied crab in a tiny military uniform. Elise pointed. "That's General Snips. He's new." Vena rubbed her temples. "I need a long nap and a short drink." Calthar examined the room. "There's no door." Elise smiled. "Of course not. This one's the empathy test." Calthar blinked. "What?" The floating orb returned, wearing a tiny digital mustache. "In this trial, please select the object that best represents the emotional state of your team." Calthar stared at it. "This is absurd." Elise scanned the floating objects. "It's the crab." Vena crossed her arms. "It is not the crab. Think about it. It's got military precision, but it's also clearly lost, dressed for the wrong war, probably just doing its best." Vena pointed at a deflated beach ball. "Number, that's us. All potential, utterly misplaced, and someone's definitely stepped on us." Calthar gestured to a cracked mirror. "Distorted, fragmented, still showing something real." Elise raised a hand. "Oh, that's deep. I'm proud of you." The orb waited. Kalthar stepped forward. We choose the mirror. The room rippled. A door appeared. Correct. You have demonstrated introspective alignment. Well done. One of you is emotionally competent. Elise raised an eyebrow. Just one? Statistically speaking, the orb replied. They moved forward, this time into a chamber full of light. White, endless, blinding. A voice filled the air, calm and ancient. You trespass on knowledge that predates form. Kalthar looked up. We seek understanding. Understanding is earned, not demanded. State your purpose. Elise coughed. Avoiding death, solving riddles, possibly winning a toaster. Kalthar ignored her. This station was marked for survey. We meant no disrespect. Your kind always means no disrespect, the voice said, until the tools fail, until the warnings are dismissed. Vena turned. It's judging us. Correct, the voice said. Elise stepped forward. All right, you want honesty? Here's some. We didn't wake you up. We tripped over you. We're just trying to leave with all our molecules in the same place. So if you're going to test us, fine. But pick a lane. Philosophy or geometry. Not both at once. A moment of silence. Then the walls bent into a staircase. Proceed. They climbed. At the top, a new chamber. Calm, circular, filled with softly glowing spheres, each pulsing with slow light. Kalthar reached toward one. Wait, Elise said. Those are memory vaults. He froze. They record interactions, experiences, failures. Think of them as report cards left by civilizations who didn't pass. One sphere pulsed brighter. Vena touched it. A burst of images. Stars imploding, ships dissolving, screams turned to equations. She staggered back. Kalthar steadied her. We leave this place. Elise nodded. Agreed, but we take the lesson with us. The orb hovered by the exit. Final test, humility. Kalthar stared. What must we do? The orb tilted. Admit you are not the smartest beings in the room. He hesitated. His pride, trained and polished over a lifetime of conquest, fought back. Then he looked at Elise, at Vena, at the glowing spheres of failed brilliance. I'm not. The door opened. Elise exhaled. Finally. Vena muttered. Took him long enough. They stepped through. Behind them, the orb whispered to itself. Progress. Registered. The lights dimmed as soon as the door sealed behind them. No flicker, no warning. Just a soft click, and then the kind of darkness that had its own gravity. Okay, Elise said, voice echoing slightly. Either we're in the part of the test where our senses are isolated to induce psychological panic, or the station's finally figured out we're not worth the electricity. Vena activated her visor, revealing lines of code cascading across the walls. Glyphs layered over glyphs. Too fast to read, too complex to decipher. Kalthar took a step forward. His boots made no sound. Elise, he said, what is this? A logic vault, she replied. The old ones used them to store cascading intellect. Whole thoughts, compressed. Imagine trying to download a doctorate through your nose. Vena winced. Can we not? From above, a series of lights sparked into being, hexagonal arrays, rotating slowly. A mechanical voice began to chant, flat and toneless. Welcome to Trial 3, Dimensional Integrity and Self-Containment. Kalthar drew his weapon. The voice continued. This test will simulate temporal dissonance, fractured memory loops, and minor reality compression. Please do not attempt to escape the simulation. Any attempts will be noted and turned into musical theater. Elise nodded. That's new. Vena glanced around. So, we just sit tight and let it bend reality around us? I mean, yeah, Elise shrugged. Unless someone here has a cheat code or a pocket universe we can crawl into. Kalthar grunted. We proceed. The floor beneath them collapsed. Not physically. There was no sensation, no fall, just a sudden shift. They stood in a kitchen. Kalthar blinked. So did Vena. Elise, however, looked impressed. Oh, this again. The room was cheerful, clean. Overhead lighting hummed pleasantly. A small table sat in the corner, set with 3 mugs, steam rising from each. A 4th mug floated in the air beside them, slowly spinning. Kalthar reached for it. The mug avoided his hand. Rude, he muttered. The mug laughed. Elise sat at the table. All right, simulation, let's get this weird. The walls rippled. The ceiling blinked. The kitchen rotated 90 degrees. Kelthar and Vena found themselves standing on what had been the wall, now the floor. Orientation is a suggestion, the voice intoned. Vena looked at her feet. I swear, if this thing starts singing at us... A toaster began to hum. Elise raised a finger. Do not encourage it. Kelthar scanned the room. No exits, no control interfaces. Only the mugs, the table, and the sound of increasingly jazz-themed appliances. The test is awareness, Elise said. We have to realize we're being tested and refuse to follow the logic traps. Vena sat slowly. So, do nothing? Do something pointless, Elise said. The AI doesn't know what to do with random acts of illogic. It's like teaching a calculator to do interpretive dance. Kelthar hesitated, then sat. He stared at his mug. Mine says best dad. Elise leaned over. Lucky, mine says world's okay as human. Vena's read, don't talk to me until I've had my plasma. The toaster produced a waffle. Elise took it. Kelthar narrowed his eyes. Is this real? Define real, Elise said, biting into it. Vena stood again, arms crossed. This isn't working. We need to push through. Fight the simulation. No, Elise said. We have to outthink it. Kelthar closed his eyes, focused. What is this trial measuring? Control, Elise said. Agency, willpower. The AI wants to see how we react when we don't understand the rules. If we break, if we obey, or if we adapt. The table vanished. So did the chairs. Kelthar stood abruptly. This is getting worse. The room folded inward. The walls stretched, then dissolved into stars. They were standing in a galaxy. Miniaturized, artificial. A simulation within the simulation. A voice echoed around them. Solve for the center. Elise looked up. Center of what? Exactly, Vena muttered. Kelthar reached into the holographic galaxy and pulled at a cluster. It reacted, expanding. A ripple passed through space, rearranging stars. That's not how physics works, he said. Not here, Elise replied. This place isn't obeying constants. It's obeying assumptions. Kelthar took another piece, moved it. The galaxy rotated. Elise touched a nebula. Oh, look, I found regret. Vena sighed. Great, now it's an emotional puzzle. I think we need to construct the right pattern, Kelthar said. Balance the shape. Balance according to what? Vena asked. Kelthar looked at her. Elise looked at him. Us, he said. Our choices, our flaws. Elise tapped a dark spot near the center. This one feels like guilt. Vena frowned. That's mine. Kelthar added a blue spiral. Duty. Elise smiled and added a tiny bright pulse. Hope. The galaxy pulsed, expanded, then without warning collapsed. They stood in the vault chamber again. No kitchen, no mugs, no stars, just silence. Then a gentle chime. Trial complete, the voice said. Cognitive divergence accepted. Proceed. A panel opened in the far wall, revealing a long corridor lined with lights. Real ones, Kelthar hoped. Elise stretched. Whew, nothing like existential crisis in a teacup. Kelthar turned to her. Why didn't you tell us you'd been through this before? She raised an eyebrow. You wouldn't have listened. He grunted. She added. Also, technically, I didn't pass last time. I just wandered around until I got bored. Vena rubbed her temples. You're telling me we're being judged by an ancient, hyper-intelligent program, and you got in by outlasting its attention span? Yep, Elise said. Classic human move. They entered the corridor. Ahead, the lights flickered. Behind, the vault sealed itself. Kelthar looked back once, then forward. Let's finish this, he said. Elise smiled. That's the spirit. Onward, to more poorly explained puzzles and probable death. Vena sighed. At least the toaster was friendly. Somewhere deep in the walls, a faint jazz riff played. The corridor seemed to go on forever, but they kept walking. Kelthar counted each step, not because he needed to. His internal HUD could track distance within a millimeter, but because it gave him something to do besides listen to Elise sing the theme song from a children's cartoon about quantum ferrets. You do realize, Vena muttered, if this station has a last nerve, you're on it. Elise didn't miss a beat. I like to think of it as stress testing ancient AI. Calthar held up a fist, signaling a stop. Ahead, the corridor split into 3 paths, each identical, each humming with low, harmonic vibrations. Another test? Vena asked. Looks like a choice, Elise replied. Classic 3-path problem. One leads forward, one leads to pain, and one leads to a loop of us arguing about which one to take. Which one did you pick last time? Calthar asked. Oh, I didn't get this far before. I got stuck in the corridor that tried to turn me into an equation. Calthar raised a brow. I got better, Elise said. The corridor to the left glowed faintly blue, the middle, white, the right, red. Vena tapped her boot on the floor. We could scan for anomalies. Calthar tried. His HUD responded with a cheerful error message that played a little jingle. Try scanning with sarcasm, Elise said. That's what I usually do. They stood in silence. Calthar turned to Elise. Which one would a human choose? The one with the least logic and most consequences, she said. But we also like snacks, so I'd say red. It's got a vending machine vibe. Vena pointed at the white path. Middle one's too obvious. First trap move in every simulation. Calthar stepped into the blue corridor. They followed. The hallway tightened, lights pulsing faster. A doorway appeared ahead. As they passed through it, everything blinked. Suddenly, they were back in the original briefing room aboard Calthar's warship, except they weren't. The details were wrong. The chairs were wrong. The insignia on the wall bore an extra crest, one that hadn't existed since before the Solari Etrax War. Calthar narrowed his eyes. Simulated memory? Elise was already flipping through one of the tablets on the table. No, deeper than that. This is a test of identity. It's trying to see if we know who we are. Vena checked her gear. Weapons are fake. Calthar's armor still functioned, but the interface was sluggish. The room's door opened, and Calthar stepped through. Calthar, or a copy of him. Identical armor, identical face, expressionless. Ah, Elise said, leaning back. Of course, evil doppelganger time. Been a while since we hit that trope. The copy spoke. You failed the test. This reality will now overwrite the original. Vena blinked. Wow, no warm-up? Just straight to assimilation? Calthar faced his duplicate. I do not accept. The double tilted its head. You don't have a choice. Yes, he does, Elise said, standing up and poking the copy's helmet. See, this is why you ancient AI constructs don't get invited to parties. Zero flair, no suspense. You're just synthetic drama with none of the buildup. The copy moved toward her. Calthar intercepted, his blade humming. The weapon passed through the figure like vapor. Non-corporeal, he muttered. Elise pulled out a small object from her pocket and threw it at the double. It stuck to its chest and beeped. What did you just do? Vena asked. Remember the rubber duck I told you about? Elise said. Turns out it's also a multi-purpose logic disruptor, or a very confused bath toy. Either way, we're about to find out. The copy froze. The lights flickered. The room distorted again, folding in on itself like crumpled paper. They found themselves in a new chamber, round, quiet, with what looked like an observatory dome stretching infinitely upward. Stars spun unnaturally fast above them, changing constellations with each breath. Calthar took a step forward. The floor displayed coordinates, star maps, planetary drift, time signatures thousands of years old. Vena walked to a floating console. It displayed a message. Final trial, synthesis. What does that mean, she asked. Elise answered, but her voice was softer now. It means we have to work together, not just physically, mentally, philosophically, cross-species synthesis. The AI wants proof that 2 different minds can become one solution. Calthar approached the center where 3 panels awaited input. Each had a different interface, one based on Solari war matrices, one a complex puzzle of human logic, the third a pure abstract pattern made of tones and shifting light. I take the war grid, he said. Vena nodded. I'll handle the visual logic. Elise? I'll try not to make mine explode, she said, placing her hands on the tone interface. The panels lit up. A soft hum filled the room. Each interface began shifting, forcing the user to adapt not only to new patterns, but to anticipate the other's responses. Kalthar adjusted his strategy as Vena manipulated hers. Elise occasionally muttered things like, "Well, that's not in any textbook," and "Did that tone just insult me?" The interfaces began to sync. Each motion became easier. Kalthar realized he was no longer leading. He was following Elise's rhythm, adjusting to Vena's pattern flow, letting their logic influence his own. The panels flashed white, and they lifted off the ground. The observatory above them widened, revealing a colossal form beyond the stars. An AI presence not physical, but visible now in structure and shape. "You have passed," Kalthar exhaled. Elise whispered, "Does this mean we get a medal?" "You were arrogant. You were dismissive. But you changed." Kalthar looked up. "What now?" "Now you leave, with the memory and the warning." Vena frowned. "Warning? Others will come, stronger, less curious. They must be stopped." The AI pulsed once. Then the world blinked again. They stood back in the original docking bay. The air was stale. The monolith was dormant. Kalthar looked at Elise. "You're not going to say I told you so?" She smirked. "Oh, I'm saving it for the report." Vena groaned. "That report's going to be 900 pages of sarcasm." Kalthar started walking. "Let's get off this relic before it changes its mind." Behind them, the monolith pulsed once, softly, almost fondly. The ship undocked with a groan, as if even it was reluctant to be near the station any longer. Kalthar stood at the observation window, arms behind his back, eyes locked on the shrinking silhouette of the relic. It no longer looked like a threat. It looked like a lesson disguised as architecture. Behind him, Elise was juggling 2 tablets, a data pad, and what suspiciously looked like a sandwich made from a ration bar in a mystery tube. "You'd think surviving an ancient AI gauntlet would earn me access to the captain's lounge," she muttered. "But no, apparently cross-species trauma doesn't come with beverage privileges." Vena leaned against the wall, tapping notes into her wrist console. "You did sneak a logic disruptor disguised as a duck into a classified mission. That might be frowned upon." "Frowned upon?" Elise scoffed. "That duck saved our molecular cohesion. Thank you very much. I want it promoted." Kalthar turned. "We still don't know what the AI wanted with us." "We passed," Vena said. "Isn't that enough?" Elise chewed, considered. "Not really. I think it's doing what we do when we tag animals. It's tracking sentient patterns. Maybe even evolving from them." "Then we gave it more tools," Kalthar said. Elise nodded. "And maybe, just maybe, it gave us some too." Kalthar looked down at his hand. He hadn't noticed it until now, but a faint pattern remained etched into his gauntlet. Not visible, perceptible. A trace of the synthesis trial imprinted on his interface. He closed his hand slowly. "I ignored your warning," he said. Elise blinked. "Sorry, can you repeat that?" "I want to record it and play it back during meetings." "I was wrong," he said again. "I assumed strength made knowledge irrelevant. That experience could replace insight." Vena tilted her head. "You're saying pride isn't tactical?" Kalthar didn't smile, but something softened. "I'm saying there's wisdom in listening, even when the source is unpredictable, especially then." Elise mock-gasped. "Character development. I knew it would happen eventually." He turned back to the window. The station was no longer in view. "The council will want a report," he said. "They'll get one," Vena replied. "Redacted, encrypted, and containing no ducks." Kalthar looked at Elise. "You'll come with us." "I wasn't aware I had a choice," she said. "You do," he said. "But if you don't, the next time a relic decides to throw us into philosophical meat grinders, I'd rather have someone who can argue with it mid-collapse." Elise smiled. "You're learning." "I'm adapting." She sat back. "Close enough." The ship hummed into jump prep. The lights dimmed slightly, stabilizers kicking in. "So what do we tell them?" Vena asked. "About the AI. About what it said." Kalthar answered without turning. We tell them the truth, that something ancient is still watching, that it's not hostile, yet, that we were measured and not found lacking. And if someone else goes in next time, then we warn them, loudly. Elise stretched, kicked her feet up onto the console, and maybe suggest they bring snacks. The ship leapt to FTL. Stars streaked past, warping in ways only math and miracle could explain. Kelthar closed his eyes for a moment, not to rest, to remember. He saw the galaxy puzzle, the empathy room, the rubber duck. He remembered the voice. You were arrogant. You changed. In silence, he opened a log entry. He titled it, On the Value of Listening to Unlikely Warnings. He paused, then added, and other things I'd rather not admit out loud. From the corner, Elise added a final note. So when's our next mission? Preferably one without moral tests or interdimensional vending machines. Kalthar turned at last. I'll let you know, he said. And next time, Vena added, we're leading with the duck. Elise raised a toast with her sandwich. To future catastrophes, unexpected heroes, and species learning to shut up and listen once in a while. The ship flew on. This time, they didn't look back.